Okay, picture this. You're holding your phone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe scrolling through something interesting.
Hmm.
But have you ever, stopped to think about what it took to get that phone from just an idea into your hand?
Yeah, it's a pretty wild process when you think about it.
It is wild. And, a big part of that journey often happens right here in India.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, everyone, where we, really dig into a new topic every time.
That's right.
If you're enjoying these deep dives, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, and don't forget to hit that bell icon so you get a notification every time we put out a new deep dive.
Definitely.
We would want you to miss out.
Today, we're going to be talking all about India's manufacturing industries.
A massive topic.
Huge topic. But it's something that's relevant whether you're, studying for the UPSC or just trying to pass your geography exams or just, if you're a curious person and you want to understand how India's economy works, to help us make sense of this massive topic, we've got an expert in the house today.
Happy to be here. Glad to dive into this with you. It's a topic people often misunderstand.
Yeah, how so?
Well, they think it's just factories making stuff, but it's way more intricate than that.
Right. It's not just like an assembly line. It's much more than that.
Exactly.
So to even start to understand this, we have to break it down, right? How are all these different industries in India even organized?
Okay, well, let's think of it like sorting your clothes.
Okay, I can do that.
So you could sort by size. In India, we've got everything from huge industries like giant steel plants all the way down to tiny workshops and even cottage industries making handicrafts.
Oh, wow. So it's really a range.
Oh, yeah, a huge range.
What are some other ways we can categorize them?
Well, we could look at what raw materials they use, right? So some are what we call agro-based. So like sugar mills processing all that sugar cane or textile mills spinning cotton into yarn.
Okay, so they're using agricultural products as their starting point?
Exactly. Then you've got industries using minerals and metals like those giant steel plants.
Gotcha.
And then we can also think about ownership too. So you've got public sector companies, those big behemoths like BHEL and SAIL or private companies.
Oh, so like a government-run power plant versus like a privately owned car factory.
You got it.
Interesting. Okay, so it's not just what they make, but who owns them and what goes into it.
And even how they operate can be different.
Oh, right. Some are probably super high-tech.
Yeah, you've got some that are very labor intensive, like think traditional handloom weaving, and then others are highly automated.
Wow, so it's really this complex puzzle where each piece matters.
It really is.
Okay, all these industries need somewhere to actually be right.
Of course.
It's not just random where they pop up, is it?
No, not random at all. Location is crucial.
Okay, I believe that.
Let's take a classic example like iron and steel plants. These guys are all about heavy lifting, literally. They need tons of iron ore and coal, and those are super heavy to transport.
So it makes sense for them to be as close as possible to where those materials are.
Bingo. That way they save a ton of money on transportation costs. It's a concept we call weight-losing raw materials. The final product, steel, is lighter than the raw materials used to make it.
Interesting.
And this is important even if you're just thinking about the UPSC exam. You might get a scenario asking you to analyze why a certain industry is located where it is, and bam, you've got your answer.
Oh, that's a good point. Okay, so proximity to raw materials is key, especially for these heavy industries. What else plays into these location decisions?
Well, power is a big one.
Okay, yeah, they've got to keep the lights on right now.
Exactly. And while electricity is pretty easy to transmit over long distances, some industries use a ton of energy.
Like what?
Like aluminum smelters or fertilizer plants. They need a reliable and cheap source of power.
I see. So if you're looking at a map and you see a bunch of aluminum plants near a big dam or a power station, that's not a coincidence.
Nope, not at all. It's all about minimizing those electricity bills.
It all comes down to money in the end.
Of course, but it's not just what goes into the factory. It's also about getting the finished goods out to the market.
Right, it wouldn't make much sense to put a car factory in the middle of nowhere with no roads or railways to get the cars out.
Exactly. And that's why historically industries in India were often clustered around those port cities like Mumbai and Kolkata.
Ah, so they could ship things out easily.
Exactly. They had access to both international and domestic markets, plus the infrastructure to get those goods moving.
So it was like they had it all, raw materials, power, and customers ready to buy.
You got it.
But as India developed its transportation networks, especially the railways, did things start to change?
They did. Industries started to spread inland, tapping into new resources and markets.
That makes sense. Railways open up a lot of possibilities.
For sure, take the Chotanagpur Plateau, for example. We often call it the Ruhr of India.
Ruhr of India.
Yeah, it's loaded with coal and iron ore, but before the railways, it was pretty isolated.
Oh, so no way to get the good stuff out.
Right, but once those tracks were laid, bam, steel plants started popping up everywhere, taking advantage of those resources.
So the railways were like this catalyst for growth in new areas.
Exactly.
That's fascinating. Okay, so we've talked
Yeah.
about raw materials, power markets, transportation. What about the people?
Ah, yes. The human element, can't forget the workforce.
Right. Of course you need people to do the work.
Exactly. Availability of both skilled and unskilled labor is crucial. Think about those traditional craft hubs like Firozabad, famous for glasswork, or Varanasi, known for its beautiful silk saris.
Yeah, so those industries rely on generations of skilled artisans passing down their knowledge, right?
Exactly, like a living legacy. And even for industries that don't require such specialized skills, having a pool of workers ready to go is essential for success.
This is fascinating. It's like we're starting to see the bigger picture, how all these factors, geography, resources, infrastructure, people, come together to shape these industries.
It's like weaving a tapestry, each thread representing a different element.
Okay, I'm hooked. So where does this industrial tapestry actually unfold? Let's take a virtual tour of India's major manufacturing hubs.
Sounds like a plan. Let's start in a place that was once known as the Cottonopolis of India.
Okay, Cottonopolis, tell me more.
We're talking about the Mumbai-Pune region.
Oh, okay.
It was a textile powerhouse, fueled by all that cotton table, the development of hydropower, and the bustling port of Mumbai.
So it had all the ingredients for success, and that legacy continues even today, right?
It does, even as Mumbai-Pune has diversified into newer industries like petrochemicals and software.
That's cool. It's like they've adapted and evolved over time.
Exactly. Now let's head north to another region with a rich industrial history, the Hooghly region centered around Kolkata.
Okay, so what made that area an industrial hub?
Well, picture this. You've got the Hooghly River, a natural waterway, perfect for trade, and it's surrounded by tons of coal and jute.
Okay.
And it was connected to those tea plantations up in Assam.
Wow, that sounds like the perfect recipe for industrial growth.
It was, but of course history had other plans. The partition of Bengal in 1947 kind of threw a wrench in things, disrupted those raw material supplies, and messed with access to markets.
That must have been a big setback.
It was, but the Hooghly region is resilient. They've adapted to changing circumstances and developed new industries.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
All right, let's explore the south. What's happening down there?
Let's head to Bengaluru, Chennai, a region that saw massive growth after independence, especially in textiles.
Okay.
They've got cheap hydroelectricity, a pretty pleasant climate, and a skilled workforce.
So it's a mix of geography and human ingenuity.
Exactly. And as we move west, we find another textile giant, Ahmedabad Vadodara.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those textile mills in Ahmedabad.
Yeah, their history goes way back. But Ahmedabad Vadodara isn't just about textiles anymore. The discovery of oil in the Gulf of Kamba has led to a booming petrochemical industry.
Wow, so the discovery of a resource could totally reshape an area.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so we've got Mumbai, Pune, the Hooghly region, Bengaluru, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Vadodara. That's 4 down. And I'm ready to hear about the rest of India's industrial powerhouses.
All right, we've got a lot more ground to cover.
But before we do, let's take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back with more of the deep dive. All right, we're back and ready to continue our industrial adventure across India. Before the break, we were talking about those regional powerhouses, the places where manufacturing really takes off.
Exactly. And we've got 4 more fascinating regions to explore. So let's venture back east to the Chotanagpur Plateau. Remember, we called it the Ruhr of India.
Oh, yeah, Ruhr of India. That sounds pretty heavy duty. What makes this region so special?
Well, imagine a landscape just full of coal and iron or, the basic building blocks of heavy industries, and then add in its proximity to those industrial and consumer markets around Kolkata. It's like a recipe for manufacturing success.
So it's like this resource-rich heartland powering India's industrial growth.
Absolutely. And when you think about Chotanagpur names like Tisco, Isco, Bokaro, Rurukla, these are giants in the Indian steel industry. They come to mind right away.
Yeah, those are big names.
And these aren't just factories, they're practically cities in themselves.
It's amazing to think about how massive those operations are.
Okay.
Let's keep moving. Where to next?
How about we head down the eastern coast to Visakhapatnam, Guntur?
Okay.
This region's industrial story is really tied to its ports.
Yeah, that makes sense. Ports are like gateways to the world, aren't they?
Exactly. And Visakhapatnam Guntur has that advantage. Plus, it's got access to coal from the Godavari Basin. And then there's that recent discovery of natural gas in the Krishna Godavari Basin, which adds another layer of potential.
So it's like this region is set to become a major energy player in the future.
I think so. All right, now let's journey north to Delhi, Gurgaon, Faridabad. This region's kind of interesting because it's actually pretty far from all those mineral-rich areas we've been talking about.
So what kind of industries do well in a region that's not sitting on a pile of raw materials?
Well, they focused on light and market-oriented industries, things like consumer goods, electronics, that sort of thing. And of course, having access to hydroelectricity from the Bakranangal project and thermal power has really helped them grow.
And let's not forget Gurgaon's transformation into a major IT hub. It's amazing how different regions can find their own specialties within this whole industrial landscape.
Mm.
Okay, last stop on our tour. Where are we heading?
To God's own country, Kerala.
So,
Specifically, the Thiruvananthapuram Kochi region. They've really taken advantage of their coastal location and all those agricultural resources to focus on food processing and lighter industries.
so we're talking delicious coconut products, spices, all those amazing things Kerala is known for.
Exactly. And the oil refinery at Kochi has been a game changer. It's attracted all sorts of downstream petrochemical industries.
So each region has its own unique flavor in a way that's so cool. All right, we've gone from the cotton mills of Mumbai to the steel giants of Chotanpur, from the IT hubs of Gurgaon to those spice gardens of Kerala. It's incredible to see how diverse and dynamic India's manufacturing sector really is.
That's a pretty impressive landscape.
But now I want to zoom in on some specific industries, the stars of the show. Let's start with the one that's often considered the backbone of any industrialized nation, iron and steel.
Yeah, the heavyweights of the industrial world, it all starts with those massive quantities of raw materials, iron ore and coal. The scale of these operations is just mind-blowing.
We talked about those huge integrated steel plants earlier, but I understand there's another type of steel maker in the mix, the mini steel plants.
Right, they're like the smaller, more agile players operating on a smaller scale. They use electric furnaces and often rely on scrap metal as their main input.
So it's like David and Goliath in the steel world.
Kind of. And because they're smaller and more flexible, they can set up closer to their markets, which saves on transportation costs.
That's a good strategy. It's fascinating how the same product, steel, can be made in such different ways.
It really is.
Okay, let's switch gears now and talk about an industry that's deeply connected to Indian history and culture, textiles.
Ah, textiles, a sector that tells the story of India's journey from traditional crafts to modern manufacturing.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about how things have evolved from handloom weaving to power looms and all those different fibers used cotton wool jute. They each have their own unique story to tell.
For sure, take cotton, for example. It's a bulky raw material, but it doesn't lose much weight when it's processed, which means cotton mills don't have to be right next to the fields where it's grown.
So things like access to markets, skilled labor, reliable transportation, those become more important.
Exactly. Wool's a different story. It's lighter and easier to transport, so proximity to the raw materials isn't as important. Climate and consumer demand play a bigger role.
That makes sense. Wool is all about warmth, so of
Yeah.
course wool and textile industries do well in colder regions.
And then there's jute, almost synonymous with the Hooghly region of West Bengal. It's a bulky fiber, so the mills are usually new, the jute growing areas, to keep those transportation costs down. And the Hooghly River, with all its waterways, makes it easy to move the raw jute and the finished goods.
So each fiber has its own quirks, and that affects where the industry is located and how it operates. Okay, let's move on to a sweeter topic, sugar.
Ah, sugar, India's liquid gold. This industry is all about being close to the sugarcane fields. Sugarcane is heavy and it spoils quickly, so sugar mills are always located as close as possible to where it's grown to minimize losses and ensure freshness.
It's interesting to see how sugar production is different in the north and south of India. In the north, the crushing season is shorter and the mills are often smaller and less technologically advanced. But in the south, the crushing season can go on year-round and the mills tend to be larger and more modern.
Yeah, those differences really show how diverse India's agricultural practices and climatic conditions are. Okay, now let's switch to an industry that runs on a different kind of sweetness, crude oil, the petrochemical industry.
This one's all about transforming crude oil into a huge range of products, fuels, plastics, synthetic fibers. It's like modern-day alchemy.
It really is, and because India imports a lot of its crude oil, the Petrochemical industry is mainly found along the western coast, where those ports make it easy to get those global supplies.
So we've covered steel textiles, sugar petrochemicals. Those are all pretty foundational industries in a way. What's next?
Let's talk automobiles. India has become a major player in automobile manufacturing. They're exporting cars all over the world.
Yeah, it's kind of wild to think that India is now one of the world's biggest car markets.
It is, and that growth is happening because of a bunch of factors, a growing middle class, rapid urbanization, and supportive government policies.
It's like a good combination, but the automobile industry faces challenges too, right?
Of course, competition's tough, both within India and globally, and there's a growing need to keep up with changing consumer preferences, embrace fuel-efficient technologies, and deal with stricter environmental regulations.
So it's like a constant race to stay ahead. Okay, speaking of adapting to change, let's talk about another industry that's going through a big transformation, leather and footwear.
Yeah, India has a long history of amazing leather craftsmanship, but this industry is facing pressure from global competition and changing trends.
I've definitely noticed people are more aware of sustainable and ethical fashion these days, and a lot of consumers are choosing non-leather options.
Exactly. That shift in consumer preferences, along with concerns about the environmental impact of leather production, is forcing the industry to rethink things and explore new materials and production methods.
So it's like the leather and footwear industry is at a turning point they have to innovate to stay relevant and competitive.
Absolutely. It's a great example of the broader challenges and opportunities facing Indian manufacturing as a whole. And you know what? We're going to delve into those broader issues in the next part of our deep dive when we explore the future of Indian manufacturing and how it fits with Niti Aayog's vision for India at 75.
We've been on quite the journey, haven't we, exploring the ins and outs of India's manufacturing sector.
We've really covered a lot of ground.
Decoded those classification systems, mapped out those industrial hotspots, zoomed in on some key industries.
It's like putting together this giant puzzle with each piece showing us a different part of India's manufacturing strengths.
Exactly, and this deep dive, it's especially useful for those of you studying for the UPSC exam, right?
Absolutely.
It's not just about memorizing facts, it's about understanding the why, how the challenges and the potential.
Exactly. For anyone who wants to join the civil services, you really have to understand the manufacturing sector because these are the industries that create jobs, drive economic growth, and boost India's standing in the world.
That makes sense.
Ah,
Okay, so let's recap some of the key things we've learned, the things that'll not only help you ace those exams, but also give you a better grasp of how things work in the real world.
sounds good.
First up, remember how diverse Indian manufacturing is.
Oh,
You've got massive steel plants and tiny workshops, cutting-edge tech, and traditional handloom weaving all happening in the same country.
it's a real mix.
This diversity is a strength, but it also means there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right. It's like a garden with all sorts of different plants, each one needing special care to thrive.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
Okay, and next, remember the importance of location. We saw how raw materials, energy sources, transportation networks, and access to markets all play a role in where industries choose to set up.
It's almost like a strategy game, figuring out the best place to be.
And the rules of the game are always changing.
Yeah. As new technologies come up, consumer tastes change and government policies shift.
Speaking of government policies we talked about, Make in India and Skill India, these initiatives are designed to address some of those big challenges facing the sector.
For sure, but it's not just about government programs. Success requires everyone to work together, businesses, workers, schools, policymakers.
So it's about building a strong foundation for innovation and growth.
Exactly. And this is where Niti Aayog's vision for India at 75 comes in.
Oh yeah, their big plan for the future.
They've got this ambitious goal of India becoming a global manufacturing powerhouse.
So what are some of the things that could help India get there?
Well, India's got this amazing demographic dividend, a young and growing workforce, plus a rising middle class and increasing urbanization. All that creates a huge market for manufactured goods right here at home.
It does sound like a lot of potential, but there must be some roadblocks too.
Definitely. Many Indian businesses are small and have a hard time growing. We need to improve productivity and get more investment in research and development.
So there's work to be done, but the possibilities are exciting.
They are, for all you UPSC aspirants out there. Remember, the manufacturing sector isn't just some boring chapter in a textbook. It's dynamic, it's constantly changing, and it's playing a huge role in shaping India's future.
That's a great point to end on. It's been an incredible deep dive, and for those of you who joined us just out of curiosity, we hope you've gained a new appreciation for everything that goes into making the things we use every day.
Maybe now you'll look at those Made in India labels a little differently.
That's it for today's deep dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel for more fascinating explorations. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep diving deep into the world around you.